Why America destroyed its most luxurious Gilded Age mansions. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the United States experienced one of the most dramatic wealth booms in its history. Known as the Gilded Age, this era was marked by rapid industrialization, powerful monopolies, and staggering fortunes accumulated by railroad tycoons, steel magnates, oil barons, and financiers. With wealth came display, and America's elite built some of the most luxurious private residences the world had ever seen. These mansions, lined along New York's Fifth Avenue, scattered across Newport, Rhode Island, and spread through countryside estates, were architectural marvels inspired by European palaces. Yet, shockingly, many of these grand homes were later demolished, sometimes intentionally and sometimes with little public resistance. The destruction of America's Gilded Age mansions was not caused by a single decision, but by a complex mix of economic change, social transformation, urban development, and cultural values. At their peak, Gilded Age mansions symbolized power and success. Families such as the Vanderbilts, Astors, Morgans, and Rockefellers competed to outdo one another in scale and splendor. These homes featured imported marble, hand-carved woodwork, gold leaf ceilings, grand ballrooms, and gardens designed by famous landscape architects. Some mansions required hundreds of servants to operate smoothly. They were not merely homes, they were statements designed to prove that America's new money could rival Europe's old aristocracy. However, the economic foundations that supported these estates were not as permanent as they appeared. Many Gilded Age fortunes were built on industries that later declined or transformed. Railroads lost dominance, monopolies were broken up by antitrust laws, and new generations did not always manage wealth as aggressively as their predecessors. As fortunes fractured among heirs, maintaining massive estates became increasingly impractical. A single mansion could cost a fortune each year in staff wages, heating, repairs, and taxes. What once symbolized success slowly turned into an expensive liability. World War I marked a major turning point. The war reshaped global economies and altered public attitudes toward wealth. High taxation on the rich, especially estate and income taxes, made it harder to preserve vast private properties. Many wealthy families sold their homes or donated them to institutions. Others simply closed them, leaving once glorious mansions empty and decaying. Without constant care, these buildings quickly deteriorated, making demolition seem like the easiest solution. The Great Depression delivered the most devastating blow. During the 1930s, as millions of Americans lost jobs, homes, and savings, Gilded Age mansions came to represent everything that had gone wrong with unchecked capitalism. Maintaining a palace with dozens of unused rooms felt morally inappropriate in an era of widespread poverty. Even families who could still afford their estates often chose to sell them at drastically reduced prices. In many cases, buyers were not interested in preservation, but in the land beneath the buildings. As a result, numerous mansions were demolished simply because no one saw value in keeping them. Urban development further accelerated their destruction. In cities like New York, land values skyrocketed as populations grew and businesses expanded. A single mansion occupying an entire block of Fifth Avenue became economically inefficient compared to skyscrapers or apartment buildings that could generate continuous revenue. Developers saw opportunity where preservationists saw history. From a business standpoint, demolishing a mansion to construct a high-rise office or residential building was a rational choice. Over time, entire rows of mansions vanished, replaced by modern structures that reflected a new urban identity. Social and cultural shifts also played a powerful role. The Gilded Age was rooted in a rigid class hierarchy where wealth was openly displayed and social status carefully guarded. By the mid-20th century, American society began rejecting these ideals. The rise of the middle class, suburban living, and democratic values made aristocratic excess seem outdated and even un-American. People favored practicality, efficiency, and modern design. Large families no longer lived under one roof with servants. Instead, nuclear families moved into smaller homes equipped with modern conveniences. Gilded Age mansions felt disconnected from contemporary life. Architectural tastes changed as well. Modernism emphasized clean lines, simplicity, and function over ornamentation. To many mid-century Americans, ornate mansions symbolized cluttered excess rather than beauty. Preservation was often dismissed as nostalgia, and demolition was seen as progress. Unlike Europe, where centuries of history encouraged conservation, the United States had a cultural tendency to prioritize the future over the past. Another critical reason for the loss of these mansions was the absence of strong historic preservation laws in the early 20th century. For decades, private owners had complete control over their properties, regardless of cultural significance. Buildings could be demolished without public notice or debate. It was not until the 1960s, after the loss of several iconic landmarks, that preservation movements gained serious momentum. By then, hundreds of irreplaceable mansions were already gone. Ironically, some of the most famous demolitions sparked public outrage and change. The destruction of New York's original Pennsylvania station in 1963, though not a mansion, became a turning point. Americans realized that architectural heritage, once destroyed, could never be recovered. This awakening helped save a few remaining Gilded Age estates. Mansions such as the Breakers, Marble House, and Biltmore Estate survived because they were converted into museums or tourist attractions, allowing the public to experience their grandeur. Today, the absence of so many Gilded Age mansions tells a powerful story. Their destruction reflects shifting economic realities, evolving social values, and a nation still learning how to balance growth with preservation. What was once considered expendable excess is now viewed as lost art and craftsmanship. The fate of these mansions reminds us that progress often comes at a cost, and that understanding history is essential if we hope to protect what remains of it. In the end, America did not destroy its Gilded Age mansions out of hatred for beauty, but out of necessity, neglect, and changing priorities. Their disappearance stands as a lesson. Wealth can vanish, values can shift, but once history is erased, it can never be rebuilt.